So, hi, Tom.
Hello,
Welcome
Tom.
to the Sip and Sew podcast, two Toms together. I've wanted to have you on the podcast for ages, to be honest with you, because I've loved spending time with you before and I've loved seeing your journey. But for people who don't know, tell people about you and what you do.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Thomas Pearson, and I am the founder, the proprietor of Tom's Yard. So I have a growing pot business. So it started off as absolutely nothing back in 2020, and it's slowly grown. And the basis of the business really is very good quality clay pots. So I bring them in directly from potteries in Crete and Italy. And alongside that, we do a few olive trees, as everybody does these days, really good quality garden tools, some beautiful range of furniture handmade near to me in Herefordshire. But really, the blood of the business is pots. And that's, I'd like to think 4 years in now, that's what I'm starting to get a bit of a name for.
You definitely are getting a name for it, and they are the most beautiful pots in the whole world.
Well,
And because that's why you choose them, right? But how did you get in? How did you decide that that's what you were going to do? At what point did you go, I'm going to do pots?
Well, I definitely didn't wake up one morning at 10 years old and think, right, I'm going to be a pot merchant.
That was your dream.
Definitely didn't happen that way. So my father did some pots going back around ball 15 years ago. He had a furniture business, and the pots are very much just a sideline. I've always worked in the family business, as any kid probably listening to this has experienced the same thing in a family business. That's sort of what you do. Went to uni, came back, then went off, worked the antiques trade, right? And at this point, being in my early 20s, yeah, you're a young man, you've got a bit of business, you've studied business, doesn't mean you're any good at it, but you want to do your own thing. And so wanted to have my own business, wanted to be in retail because that's all I've ever really known. But I knew I wanted a product that wasn't just imported tat. And I don't mean to use that word, sort of throw it in my, but I wanted something that had inherent quality, something that I could stand up in front of 10,000 people one day and put my name to it and be flipping proud that I do that. And so it came about that when I went away, came back, wanted to set up this garden business, and we knew the pots were handmade. And I think that's the really important thing about them, is that someone has put their hands and time and skill into making them, which so many products on the market now. There's all these plastics, all these composites, and they're factory processed, they're bashed out. Whereas terracotta pots are thrown, and it's a labour of love.
Yeah.
And that's where it really came from, was wanting a business that had a product that was genuine. And we knew they worked, went away, came back, and managed to find the right pottery that could do them for us, and they actually wanted to sell to me, which was
Always helps.
a bit of a problem at the start.
So you went over there to look and find the right people.
So luckily, we didn't have to go over there at first because my father had already worked with a pottery over there. And although they were no longer going, because these are only really small provincial sort of village potteries, we managed to find, through a few phone calls and a few emails, a pottery that was still going as such. And there's a couple out there, all with a slightly different style, which is really nice because they all are all individual pots.
Yeah, I love that. So why was it important to you to work with those people, though? Those small family businesses in those different countries, rather than just either a bigger one, because there are giant ones in those countries, right, that you could just buy a load of terracotta pots from, or even in this country. Why those smaller? people?
I think when it started, we knew that Potts and Crete were ace, just simple as that. And we knew there was other people in the country already charging stupid prices for them. So we knew it had to be from Crete. There weren't too many options.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like a really hard list. And I think probably going back to your question, when it's now come further down the line of the business and we started importing from a pottery in Italy as well, and now we've also got a pottery in England that we're also working with, it has been a real challenge finding the right potteries to work with who make really good quality pots. Don't charge me a fortune to make them, but at the same time, don't just churn them out.
Yes.
And it's a really hard line to
get that uniqueness and that their own stamp and the quality.
This is it. But now, 4 years in now, we've got the pots from Crete, the pots from Italy, the pots from England, and pretty much there's not too much else now that I can really do. Anything else now would be sort of going away from the basis of the business being clay pots.
Yeah.
And I really want to stay away from doing glazed pots, tin pots, galvanized pots, because it's just going to sort of
dilute the brand almost. Yeah.
Cock on.
Yeah.
You're absolutely on it. And I really want to just have a business that's focused on a main product, being just the clay pots.
Well, when you've got such a beautiful product as the clay pots in the first place, then you can't really stick a glazed pot next to it. I don't think it would do itself justice, would it? When you've got those amazing
a lot.
pots.
I mean, we actually had a couple ask me this yesterday about.
Did you?
Because you see the old blue glazed pots,
Yeah.
and, I think they were a real thing of the noughties, 90s.
Yeah.
But there is a pot for every spot. And I think I even read an interview with Alan Titchmarsh once, who once said that you cannot beat a red geranium in a blue glazed pot.
It's classic like combination.
It's bacon and eggs on toast.
Yeah.
It's classic stuff that you can't go wrong with. So there's no right or wrong. I just think clay pots they're good for the plants. They weather nicely, but it's not to say they're perfect for every spot. And it's never to talk, to sort of look down on them and say, there's a naff glazed pot. 'Cause it's not fair and it's not right.
Yeah. So how has the journey of the business been? Has it? Because I'm sure it hasn't been plain sailing, has it? When you decided, right, I'm going to do pots and I'm going to do Grecian pots just to make my life really difficult, then how's it been?
I tell you, it's been, I can't swear, it's been flipping hard work.
Yeah, I bet.
We're not out there shifting, watering cans or, light things that are easy to move. It's a back-breaking business. And if you're like me, I don't just bring them into my Tom's yard, which is where I'm based. We don't just sort of bring them in and then sort of put them into a corner and sort of wait for them to sell. We get out there, we take them to shows, we try and get them in front of people. And there's a lot of moving about involved with them.
Yeah.
We do get breakages
and
occasionally.
I was going to say, you're moving about the most breakable thing, arguably.
I mean, they're hard-going pots. They're not just sort of pots you buy from B&Q that sort of shatter at the first impact.
Yeah, they're big, chunky, quality pots, aren't they? But still, like you say, you can't just chuck them all in the back of the van and off you go to the show like I do with all this kit. You've got to be
it's
careful.
really hard work. So, we get them out there. We have, when you get the odd expression of, business owners putting blood, sweat and tears into a business, which is one of the sort of most overly used lines any entrepreneur can use. I hate buzzwords and all this nonsense. But if you want to see a business of blood, sweat and tears, I can stand up and say I've put all three of those ingredients into growing this business. And it's, from day one, it's been just me. I've occasionally got people who help me out, really close friends of mine back home in Herefordshire. But still to this day, 4 years later, it's just me moving, heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And it's not been easy by any means. But 4 years later,
You're still doing
at it. So
it
something's
must
going
be
right.
all right. Yeah. And you've been featured in a few books and magazines and stuff like that, haven't you, along the way, which I'm sure has helped. What's been your favourite there?
I think the one that I couldn't believe the most was when Arthur Parkinson put me in the back of his last book, not on
Yes.
chickens,
No.
on container gardening. That would have been a bit of a rogue one. When he put me in the back of his book on as a sort of recommended supplier, that was flipping
What a
nuts.
recommendation to have from Arthur Parkinson.
I mean, because when I first got into gardening, so 2019, 2020, when I actually bought my first gardening books, he was one of the first ones I picked up, and instantly had this idea that this is one young man, about my age, certainly looks younger than me now.
He
and-
ages backwards, I think.
Oh God, he's gorgeous, and I won't go on a spiel about how handsome he is.
Well, yeah, that's a new podcast we can start later.
But I just had this idea that he was a sort of a soft authority on container gardening, and had this instant idea that you look at his Instagram, and people just love him. So, fast forward 3 years later, and to see the name of your business in the back of his book. I mean, we've met in person. We have got an upcoming dinner date due, which I need to rudely actually properly get in with him and say, right, I'm coming over. But to see your business, the name of your business in print,
Yeah.
with something like that is just, and you buy your copy of the book. I remember I was at RHS Malvern a few days. I think that was when it first came out. Was RHS Malvern 2 last year or the year before? And when you run over to the stand and you right, I've got to get the book, and you're flicking through the back and you see the name. It's this moment of just the sort of pride, and they say pride comes before the fall and all those things, but the level of pride and pleasure that comes seeing that is immeasurable, incredible.
I bet. And the other thing that I was just thinking as well that you have with your business is that you've got them all here today at the show, at Shrewsbury Flower Show. You've got all of your pots, but people can't really just take them home either, can they?
The big problem in my business is the shipping.
Yeah.
We can't send them in the post, and this is something that a lot of people I think people particularly buying through the websites, which the part of the business that's got quite big this year is the web order side. But people don't realise that you can't just pop a pot in a parcel.
It's not just put a big label on and put it in a courier van or whatever. No.
Definitely not. And God bless Royal Mail. They throw them around like rugby balls in the back of those vans. So the problem is we have to send the pots through what I call a freight network. So this is they get put onto a wooden pallet, onto the back of a lorry, into a sort of distribution hub, all handled by forklifts and pallet trucks. When they get processed, go to another hub, and then get sort of personally delivered by a lorry to the front of your house. And the problem with that is, although it's a very safe way of sending pots, it's quite costly. So this is the main problem I have, especially selling smaller pots, is that the average cost to me as a business of sending a pallet is just about £80. By the time you've got the price of the service, the price of the pallet, it's all got a cost. We don't just pick them up off the side of the M5. Your packaging, materials, you can't even account, as any small business owner doesn't account for their time doing these things. So it, on average, worked out to about £79, including VAT. It's quite costly. So we're at this really interesting point in the business now of trying to actually work out, well, look, this is the retail price for the pots. If someone's going to buy one small pot at £90, which is still it's an expensive pot by any means.
Yeah.
They're basically paying the same price for the pot again to ship it. So when it comes to the shows, people want to pick up a pot, they can't take it 2 miles away to their car. So when it comes to the shows, we try and sell the sort of the idea of the business and look at these beautiful pots, how they can be layered, how they compare in size in situ. And try and give people a really good flavour whilst being there with the smiles and the service, you know, and trying to give them all the information to make sure they're choosing the right pots.
So what is next for Tom's Yard? As much as we've said about, I'm not going to diversify into a million different pots. What are you working on? What are you trying to do more of? What's the plan for the rest of the year and into next year?
The next big plan, as I mentioned earlier, are the English pots. And this is something
That's quite exciting, I think.
excited about. Because we found the pottery who can make them, which is really hard. We've gone through the designs and we've gone through it's quite hard coming up with the pots. If you sort of this is probably something you could do at home right now if you actually watch, if you got this far into my rambles. If you got home and draw a piece of A4 paper and someone says to you, come up with a pot, you probably, you'd probably draw something like that. You know, just a really normal tapered pot, plain, the wide top slightly wider than the bottom. Very simple. But the idea of this new range is to be heavily inspired by pots of the past. So, you know, lovely seed pans, very traditional long toms, and going away from, you know, I'm a bit of an old-fashioned boy, you know, in an old-fashioned part of the country. So we're not trying to get pots with, you know, all sort of whimsical things on the sides and oak leaves and, Garden of Lives plastered on.
Things you see in the garden centres.
You know, exactly. And it's horses for courses.
Yeah.
Just really simple pots, lovely ribs, beautiful rims, and that's the next thing. So
that sounds really good.
Oh, thank you. When we've drawn the designs, I've spent endless hours trying to get the proportions right so they actually look good and are also sort of make sense. So that's going to be probably for 2025, middle of spring. So now we've just got the challenge of paying for them. It's quite a bit of a cost, and also surviving winter, which is always fun as a sort of self-employed pot merchant. Is going through the winter months, but you know we've done 3 now. I'm sure we can do one more. Yeah,
exactly. What's another one, hey?
Yeah.
And what does that look like for you over winter? Because I guess you're definitely not doing shows, but also people aren't really thinking about their gardens and stuff. I guess so. Does it go really quiet for you?
Where my season goes is we go up to about middle of October, which is great. You know, you've got that last of the summer, the sun's coming down, the daylight heat is still there. November and December are pretty rubbish. We do a few Christmas markets for the tools, some of the smaller pots, and we do get some very lucky wives treated by husbands to a nice pot for Christmas and shoot me down for being, sexist, but that's what we genuinely see. Then come January, February, pretty dire. It's probably most small businesses,
horticultural businesses especially.
And then really from March, we start to see the
signs of spring, and everyone starts to think about their gardens.
Yeah. But I mean, don't get me wrong, we're still selling pots all throughout the year. We're shipping them off every week of the year now. And I tend to say it's more the very keen gardeners who tend to be planting year round, as opposed to the more the gardeners who tend to follow the TV and are more inspired by the magazines, maybe.
Yes.
Who will see a pretty picture of something outside their front door and think, oh, that looks really nice. So that more what I call sort of public gardener definitely comes really until sort of May, June. And it's more the trade, the landscapers, and the very keen gardeners who are that sort of early spring getting ready for the year ahead.
Yeah. So have you had much chance to look around the show here so far? You've been really busy on the stand and just not actually like me. I've had a quick look in the floral market and a quick look around, but not been able to have a proper look yet.
Not had much of a look. I mean, the thing is, when you're setting up, you're busy setting up. When you're done setting up, you kind of want to go because you're knackered.
Yeah.
You then come here in the morning with your coffee, get the stand, you're neatened up a bit. But then by the time the thing is, when you start, you see people like yourself for a natter,
Yes,
you see
that's
Louise from the Woody and you're talking for half an hour. Because you're seeing all these people that you know and see from the circuits.
It takes you forever to get around anywhere, doesn't it?
Does.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I mean, it's like when people like yourself or, Johnny go to Malvern. By the time you've actually seen everybody that you know and you've sort of put the world right over a good chat, you've sort of gone to the end of your row.
I think at Malvern this year, I didn't actually see anything of the show because I just went from people to people,
Oh, no,
just
you wouldn't.
chatting and catching up. And then we got to the end of the day and went, we need another day to actually see the show.
Honestly, at these larger shows, for anyone visiting, I'd highly advise that you come over 2 days.
Yeah.
Because there's so many beautiful plants to see, so many great people to see. Take the time, go to the fantastic talks and things like the Horticultural Theatre, see the brass bands playing, and rather than rushing it and knackering your feet out, just really take your time. Although it's raining today and we've got a bit of rain, don't let that put you off, because there's nothing wetter than people put off by a bit of rain.
No.
Because in Britain, we're an island, you've got to take it as it comes. So get out there, get your cagoule or your anorak, and just love it. Just
Go and
enjoy
visit
it.
Tom's yard.
Well, and if you want
and
to
buy
as well.
a pot.
We're down at stand 276. We found down there with a nice display.
Well, I'm going to come round again later because I've got my eye on some of those, the nice shallow ones that are perfect for putting bulbs in, I think.
Perfect for small little bulbs.
They look amazing.
Alpines.
I had a sneaky look yesterday. Peep over.
Thank you
but
very much.
There are so many nice pots. So I'm going to come back around later and have another look. Hopefully it will have stopped raining by then.
I would like to hope so.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But thank you for joining me today, Tom. And we'll have to catch up again later on. But I'll let you go and enjoy the rest of the show now. And hopefully the pots are flying out.
Well, we should get selling by now, so I should run off and see my boy Jesse.
Yes, you better get to it. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much.